Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inspired Body by Bell. I'm your host, Joyce Bell, LPN. I am excited to share this podcast on health, wellness, and fitness with you because I want to help anyone who wants to become healthier, because I believe that everybody deserves to have the body and life they love. Now, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and download the app Beat Break 87 FM and make sure you tune in on Saturdays from 4 to 5 p.m. That's when I come on with my podcast, and I will be bringing you information on health, wellness, and fitness. We're going to have tips. It's going to be fun. We're going to make it fun because everybody deserves to have the body and life they love. Today's topic, or the recording for the podcast, actually is going to be for the month, at least 5 Saturdays straight. It's going to be showing your heart love. We've got segments that we're going to break it into. So you got to make sure you tune into each podcast because you don't want to miss out on anything. Today's topic recording is showing your heart love. But before we begin that segment, I want to remind you, go to www.inspiredbodybybell.com. There you're going to check out my blogs. You'll find out tips on exercises, what my beliefs are, and you can also follow my healthy lifestyle journey on Instagram at Inspired Body by Bell. It's going to give you insight into my amazing health journey, my transformation, what I accomplished. And I'm telling you, if I can do it, I can help you get your own transformation and get your transformation journey started. Okay, guys, so listen, I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to share information because I know that if I can do it, you can do it too. And guess what? You can do it even better because I'm here to coach you. You know, most coaches are what? Players in the game that loved it but just could not make it, or played it and fell off. It's always going to be some kind of passion. So I'm going to always be your coach. Not to mention, I will forever be on my health journey until I die. I am a 48-year-old grandmother who happens to be a nurse of 18 years. I have a specialty in cardiology. I have one son and one grandson whom I love to death. Love them all. They're so beautiful. I know that's not part of the training, but I get excited, when I talk about my family members. It's I think of another part of the healthy growth that your body has when you're living a healthy lifestyle. So there you have it. So this will be a great time, if you have not done so already, to go grab you a piece of paper, a pencil, or a pen and take some notes, because I've got some really good information. You're really going to like it. We're going to be diving right into the topic, and the topic is showing your heart love. I have 5 simple ways that I've used since I've started on my journey back in 2014. And I've continued to use it. And in using it, I grow strength. I believe that if you use it, you will become just as confident. You will be able to help yourself because you will always know your numbers. You will always know what your numbers are. The other activity is stay active. Or rather, that's number 2. Number 3 is set your goals. Number 4 is supplement smartly. And number 5 is to eat good food often. So these are the topics that we're going to be going over as we present the podcast to you. But today, the topic is going to be always knowing your numbers. Now, remember when I said when I was at 40 years old, I was told that the decision was either going to be surgery or, I was going to be doomed to have a valve that was going to just fail on me because of the nature of the diagnosis. The diagnosis was mitral valve regurgitation. And so I knew my numbers. My cholesterol numbers were great. My blood pressure numbers were great. And those were reasons for me to even so make the decision to not have surgery. My numbers were great. Now, how is it possible that my heart, and so because I knew my numbers, I had the opportunity to make a life-changing decision. And with that decision, decided to turn towards health and wellness, towards drinking more water, towards walking a little bit more, towards running, towards being able to stretch and become a little bit more flexible and more agile. I mean, in such an amazing way that just doing some simple things consistently, day in and day out, you bound to have progress. So the numbers that we're going to be discussing are your high blood pressure, your cholesterol. We're going to talk about the risk for the kidneys, kidney failure. You'd be surprised. Maybe you wouldn't even know how the kidneys are associated with high blood pressure and kidney failure. One of the most disturbing things to see right now in 2019 in clinics around the world is that individuals don't know what medications they're taking. Know your numbers, know your medication. If you are taking blood pressure medications, know the name of it and know the number. Know the number of the range as you should be because you're taking the medication. Some medications may have been diagnosed 10 or 15 years ago. That means that diagnosis should probably get a reevaluation 10 years later, because maybe that same medication that you've been on 10 years earlier has worn out on its efficacy, which means on its value to work. It's weak, and so it doesn't have the same properties as back then. Furthermore, your body has changed, and so your body is not able to either metabolize or take the medication as it did. So know your medication, know your numbers. With blood pressure, we're going to break it all the way down so that you can understand what the blood pressure actually is. And the blood pressure is going to be when the heart is squeezing and it beats to push the blood through the arteries through to your body. So if we can imagine it being a sponge, and when you squeeze it, the blood pushes, which is a fluid, pushes out of the sponge into different arteries and different vessels. That's what the blood pressure is, the force of it. Now, when you take the blood pressure and you get a reading of two numbers, one number is on the top and one is on the bottom. The top number is your systolic number. That's the number that tells us how much pressure it is that your blood is exerting when it beats. So as it's squeezing, how much is that pressure, the volume of that? What is that? They actually can capture that and put a number to it. And so that equates to the number that's on top. That number is very important. For the majority of clients that are over the age of 40, 45, 50 years old, that number is drawing us attention to some major risk factors for cardiovascular disease. That could possibly mean that as they continue to age, if they were smokers or not, the elasticity in the arteries become harder. They don't have as much flexibility, and so that causes for easy buildup of plaque, and now you've got blockages, and you have situations where the pressures are high, and the older folks are just walking around with just high blood pressure. You know, don't know why the head is hurting, don't know why they're feeling lightheaded or dizzy, and sometimes they just fall down and they don't understand why. And folks said it's not funny, but it's a reality because your pressure's high. Oh, I don't take any medication. I feel good. But in reality, you feel good because your body is responding in survival mode, almost autopilot, while you're just eating up those pork chops and your greens and all the things that, have too much salt or too much seasoning that's harmful to the body. So remember, the number that is on the top is the systolic, and that is the number that is going to be of most importance for diagnosing individuals over the age of 50 for cardiovascular disease. The number on the bottom is the diastolic. Now that number is going to tell us what the pressure is when the blood is exerting after the heart is at rest. So after it has squeezed, when it's on the rest stage, what is that pressure? Which is what we would call the return. So the systolic is pushing forward, the diastolic is the return, coming back. And so there are ranges for those numbers. The diastolic is not necessarily, a priority. I think once those numbers at the bottom are like 100 and above, or, maintaining in the 90s and above, with complaints of maybe pain in the legs or tightness in the legs, or feeling as though there's a blockage of some sort, upon further testing, which we have different names for those kinds of peripheral vascular testing devices. Peripheral meaning the lower extremities, your calves, your thighs, your feet, is that part of the body is being affected by the return, the diastolic. And when those numbers are high, it indicates this is a possible blockage or occlusion along the pathway on the return. I hope this information is making sense. I try to break it down, and to be honest, I took this whole podcast apart. I had probably an hour worth of information and realized that I don't want to speak really fast. This is my world and I love it. I could talk about it all day and it makes sense, and realize that I don't want to do that to the public. I am definitely open on www.inspiredbodybybell.com for your comments, and let me know how I am doing. I was going to give you suggestions or tips on what the normal blood pressure would be, and that would probably fall in the range of 118/60 or 70, which meaning the heart is not having to have to work. The heart is not having to work too hard. The higher the number, the heart will have to work hard, and that means that there's a lot more pressure or tension in the valves, and that can cause various situations, a rupture of some sort, a burst in the vessel, and now you've got a clot, which is possibly traveling, and things of that nature. So again, the blood pressure is very important. High numbers, higher than 140, maintaining in that range, and the bottom being 100 and above, is something that needs to be looked at. Please do not ignore it when it happens. As you begin to age, you having pains in your feet, go and get them checked out. Let's take care of each other in the community. And this is why I have the podcast. So one of the great things to know is that hypertension, high blood pressure, however you want to call it, it can be treated. It can be treated early on if you know your numbers. So someone maybe at 45 can capture it earlier on, or even in their 20s, being mindful of, the things they eat, the things they put in their body, how they carry their body, how much water you help to process the toxins in your body so you prevent to have as much clogged, material in your body, and to help your kidneys and your livers and pancreas, all of those organs that are going to help to flush the toxins out of your body. Speaking of which, the kidney also begins to fail because of the pressure. It serves as a pump of its own down below. So you've got the heart up on top and you've got the kidneys below, which also responding because it's using also its ability to pump blood, in those areas, and then also down to go down into the legs. So now you've got high blood pressure squeezing at the top, and then you've got it doing the same at the bottom. The next item that we want to make sure we pay attention to is cholesterol. Now, I know you've heard of it. Well, what's your cholesterol numbers? Cholesterol is not your friend. This is a waxy, fatty-like substance that kind of is found in the cells in your body. So depending on where it shows up in your body, it'll have like a different name for it. So like if it's in your belly area, they might call it ascites. Or if it's in your butt and thigh area, they might call it cellulite. Or if it shows up, on your thighs and causes an irritation so bad, it might be called cellulitis. I mean, it's got so many different names for it depending on how severe it is. So now that you got cholesterol built up in your body, the body can make its own, but you've got this extra added to it. And so now they start breaking off into your bloodstream. And so now you've got these blood and fatty cells floating around. And there are times when they begin to, clog upon each other. If you think about when you're cleaning your chicken and you're cutting those pieces up and they're really tiny and slippery and sliding and they're all falling into the sink and then cause a clog. And so now it's clogged. You have to then separate it with your fingers or your hand because they're so thick and no liquid or fluid can get by. That's the same thing as the blood trying to get through the artery. It is now clogged. It cannot get through because the fatty, waxy substance is in there and it gets harder. And why? Because you don't drink any water. And so now you've got this thing hardening, and so we call it plaque. So the body makes its own because it's natural, of a hormone for like your vitamin D and so forth. But when it's overpowered by unnecessary cholesterol, now it's too much in the body. It's going to build up. It's going to cause the plaque. It's going to hang along the insides of the walls of the arteries. And then that makes them even more smaller. And so it's difficult to travel. And now we've got this pressure going on and we've got the high blood pressure going on at the same time. And now we've got this dynamic duo of a deadly combo, and it's decreasing the blood flow to your brain because now the arteries are being closed and the carotid arteries in the neck are being blocked, and then you're in trouble. You've got a stroke, or you've had a mini stroke, or you've had a TIA. Either which way, that's not a nice name. Those names you want to stay away from. Now, the truth of the matter is anyone can have a stroke. Anyone can have a TIA. Some of those are the ones that are transient that we really have no idea and we could not have known. Anything could have jarred it loose and it began to travel. But there are certain things that are definite risk factors for it. And those things are like obesity, kidney failure, diabetes, hypertension, and other things that could cause challenges with your heart and the function that it is. The other challenge for those blockages with the cholesterol is that leg pain that you're having. The same blockages that you're having in the heart area, you're going to start having them in the legs. The legs begin to lose the air supply and the blood supply, and then they begin to hurt. These are the legs that develop those varicose veins that itch or really are annoying, or they simply hurt because now they are under pressure. The blood has decided to squeeze against them, and that makes them uncomfortable. The numbers for the cholesterol that we need to pay attention to are called your LDL, which is your bad cholesterol. You have your HDL, which is your good cholesterol, and then your triglycerides, which is a mixture of them both. For the LDL, we always want to pay attention to a number that would have to be less than 100, which means low density. This is the bad cholesterol. This is the one that you don't want. This is the one that's caused because of the fried chicken or the Crisco or the butter or the overly excessive amounts of intake of fatty foods or substances, buttery-like substances that can cause this. And keeping in mind that everybody's body type is different and everybody's way of metabolizing foods are different. So they could never be compared one person with another, because you would find yourself in a lot of trouble. It doesn't work that way. So again, the numbers we're looking at are the LDL, which should be less than 100, your HDL, which is your good cholesterol. We would like that number to be greater than 40. And then the mixture of triglycerides should be less than 250. So a total sum in all, your cholesterol should be about 200 or less. 175, 180 is great. As a matter of fact, I believe that mine is 171, something of that sort. I mean, I always had fairly good blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetic numbers. I've always had really good numbers. But in the last 5 years, my numbers have incredibly increased to be what we would call like top performance. It's amazing to be 48 years old and definitely feeling like I'm 28 and probably even better than that, maybe 24. That's health, you know, and with that, you want to share it and you want to give it. And that's why I'm here doing this podcast. So again, the numbers to pay attention to for the cholesterol is going to be the LDL being less than 100, the HDL being greater than 40, and your triglycerides less than 250, with a sum of a total at least less than 200. And even if it's slightly over, that doesn't mean like, oh my God, I'm going to have a heart attack. What it means is, now let's more closely look at the numbers. Let's look and decide, is the number that's causing it to be that way caused by the LDL, which is less than 100, or is it caused by the HDL, which is greater? And then we can work at those things individually. And that's how you determine what medication you may need to help, or simply how aggressively you're going to work with your diet, the things that you eat, and your lifestyle, so that you can make those changes without having medication. Those are choices that you have to make. It's all entirely up to you. Let's move on to, I think I mentioned the triglycerides and I said that they were less than 250, but I may not have said what they were. It's a combination of the HDL, LDL, and about 20% of a mixture creates the total sum for the cholesterol. The high score indicates that there's an increase for developing cardiovascular disease. And I hope you know, and if not, I'm going to give you a newsflash. The leading cause of death in America is cardiovascular disease. Newsflash. Okay, enough of that. If you stay on listening to Beat Break Radio, you'd understand that they can give you some really local news, but I'm here on the health and wellness tip, just giving you all I got. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast on health, wellness, and fitness. This is Joyce Bell, your host of Inspired Body by Bell. You can always follow on www.inspiredbodybybell.com. Follow my life journey on Instagram at Inspired Body by Bell. You can also leave a message at 678-227-4703. Join the family. Inspired Body by Bell has got a lot of 16-week challenges and all sorts of fun activities that we do outside of the podcast. Tune in next Saturday. We're going to be looking forward for you. We love you and thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you.